Listen, I just recorded this intro like 6 times because the lighting wasn't right. So, whatever the lighting is in the final project, that's what you're gonna get. Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I will be reviewing the Oscar nominated film Call Me By Your Name, which is up for a Best Picture nomination. And as we're going into Oscars season, now we're 1 month out from the Oscars, which are on March 3rd. I will be reviewing all the nominees, all 9 of them, but obviously there aren't 9 weeks in February, so I'm going to try to pump out at least two or three videos a week about the nominations. So today I will be reviewing the movie Call Me By Your Name, and later on this week I will most likely be doing Mudbound because that's on Netflix, and also my mom keeps bugging me to watch it, so I'll probably get around to watching that either later today or early tomorrow or whenever my next day off is. So let's jump right into this review of Call Me By Your Name. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this movie, I did talk about it previously in my Golden Globes rant and review. It was more of a rant than a review, but I talked about it previously, and that was before I saw this movie, and I didn't know a lot about this movie before I went into it. I knew that the plot was very basic, which it is after I came out of it. It's very basic. It's essentially just a love story between these two guys, Elio, played by Timothy Chalamet, and and Oliver, played by Armie Hammer. And it's essentially just Elio being in northern Italy with his family for summer vacation because his father's a professor who studies like Italian history, art history. It's never made clear, but they speak Italian for half the movie and they talk a lot about art. And then Oliver, Armie Hammer's character, comes over from America and he's one of Elio's dad's students. I forgot the dad's name. I did not look up the dad's actor's name before I watched this. I totally forgot to, but he's one of Elio's father's students, and essentially they fall in love over the course of this 2-hour movie. That sounds like it should be a good premise, but I have some problems with this movie. So we're going to go a little backwards because I'm just the type of person who always talks about the bad in a movie before I can get to the good. So first we're going to start with the bad. The bad in this movie is that Elio is 17 and Oliver is 20-something. Well, not 20-something. Armie Hammer is 31, and they don't explicitly say his character's age in the movie, but it is very heavily implied that he is considerably older than Elio, because at the end of the movie, spoiler, I don't know why you'd watch this if you were scared of spoilers, but spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, Armie Hammer's character Oliver goes back to the States, and he ends up getting engaged or married to this woman. So it's very implied that Oliver is considerably older, at least not 8 to 10 years older than Elio, which is not good in a movie where your protagonist is a 17-year-old boy. So the biggest bad in this movie is the age difference between the two characters. And like sometimes age differences don't bother me because like obviously you can have like a 25-year-old and like a 35-year-old or like a 35-year-old and someone who's in their 60s. I don't mind it when it's two adults or like. And I'm not talking about like someone who's 18 dating someone who's like in their 30s. No, that's equally creepy because they're still on that cusp of like adulthood, and also the human brain does not finish maturing until 25. So it's really weird when people try to justify age gaps by being like, oh, they're 18, they're an adult. And I'm just like, that doesn't make it okay. Just because Elio is 17 going on 18 does not make it okay for this 28, 29, 30-year-old man to be going after him. It's really creepy, and it shows really poorly in this movie. I don't understand how other critics and reviews and movie fans watch this and went, wow, this is so great, and not just like super awkward, because for the beginning half of the film, essentially Elio and Oliver is just like, oh, you are a man at my house who is here because you know my father. And it's very much that it feels like when you're like at a family reunion and someone who you have no idea who they are comes up to you and starts talking to you. That's how their relationship plays off for the entire first 45 to hour of this movie. It's long, it's awkward, their dialogue feels really clunky, which like isn't the actor's fault. They do their best with what they're given, and I will say that's one thing that I did come out of this movie liking. Timothy Chalamet's performance does feel very genuine. He does play Elio very nicely. And the dad's character, again, forgot his actor's name. I do not remember they stated the dad's name in the movie, but Elio's dad, his actor, he was one of my favorite characters in the movie just because he was such a happy-go-lucky man. And it was just fun to watch him and Elio interact, like a nice, natural father-son relationship. Another one of the bad things in this movie is that it feels about 20 minutes too long. As I said in the beginning, it's 2 hours. This really could have been 80 to 90 minutes because the entire last half of the film just drags by. And it's one of those movies where the middle of the movie feels like it should be the end of the movie, and then the end is just like, oh yeah, we shot all of this. Maybe we should just like shove it in there somewhere. And like sometimes it works. It kind of worked in It. One of my problems with that movie is that it was too long, but like it all ended up working because there was actually like a story to tell through the conclusion of the film. Whereas with Call Me by Your Name, it's like, yay, they're in love. They had sex, which was really gross. And then it's just like this for the last 30 minutes of the movie. It's very, nothing happens at all. Like, people who go into this, who are like, ooh, spoilers, this is not a movie where you should be concerned about spoilers, because nothing of importance happened. There's a plot twist that you can see coming from a mile away, but it's not important to the plot. It doesn't really advance anything. It's just a very slow, very boring movie. Now that I've gotten out of the bad, let's get into the good. I kind of talked about the good in the earlier section about how I like the acting performances and the dad, but that should be stated. It does have a Best Actor nomination, which Timothée Chalamet does deserve. As I said, he carries Elio's performance very well. He was very fun to watch in the scenes where he wasn't just being a moody teenager. Like in the scenes where he was interacting with the other teens in the town. What's the girl's name? Marzia was like his girlfriend from France who was also spending the summer there. And they have a very sweet, very touching, I really liked their storyline. It just felt like a very nice summer romance movie. And if it had just focused on those two and maybe just like a regular friendship between Elio and Oliver, I probably would have walked away from this thinking, hey, I like that. May not be for everyone because, again, it is kind of slow. But those two, their dynamic was very sweet. And I really liked how it ended because in the end, Elio's just like, hey, I do care a lot about you, but like, I just cannot see us working out because one, we see each other once a year. And two, I like men, so this might not work. And she's just like, okay, cool, let's be friends. And he's like, okay, cool, let's be friends. And it's very sweet to watch them play out together. They had a lot of good chemistry. So kudos to that storyline that actually ended up working in this very boring movie. Another thing that I walked away from this movie liking was the direction. This movie has such a really nice aesthetic. Like, one of the main things that people always talked about in reviews when I was first reading reviews when this was coming out was how beautiful it was shot, how nicely the 80s aesthetic fits into it. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous to look at. Like, I could put this on mute and just like leave it on for like a Windows screensaver or something on my TV. It just looks really nice. The 80s aesthetic fits in really well. All the music is very beautifully done. It made me feel like I was in summer sitting in this super cold theater in the middle of January. And it just has this really timeless feel to it because they only say that it's the 80s once at the beginning of the movie. And then the rest of it is just like everyone's in 80s clothes listening to 80s music and sitting around watching big clunky televisions and driving clunky cars. And it just fits really well. I think that was... I don't think they could have set this in any other timeline and have it work as well because it just wouldn't have had that. It wouldn't have had as much as a timeless feel to it. So it's very nice. It's very summery. It's very bright. It's got such a gorgeous color palette. It's like someone literally scrolled down Pinterest and just picked, ooh, let's do that mood board, and then they picked the entire aesthetic for the movie. So it looks gorgeous. If you like good direction, then you should definitely go watch this movie. And that just about sums up my review for this movie. I didn't have a lot of good on this, and my main bad was just that it was boring, and the plot between the two and the plot between Elio and Oliver is very uncomfortable to watch. So if you are a CSA survivor or someone who's just like, has a good head on your shoulders and knows that someone who's in their 30s dating a 17-year-old is fucking ridiculous, then you definitely shouldn't watch this movie. I can't recommend it. I don't think it's good gay representation because, again, as I said, Oliver and Elio end up leaving each other, and then Elio finds out a couple months later. Oliver's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm engaged to a woman, and just gets his heart broken, and it's not a good ending at all. Like, aside from acting and aesthetic, it's not a good movie. I cannot recommend this. I would give it maybe like 1 star just because I like how it looks. But aside from that, I would not recommend this. If you want to watch it, bootleg it. I'm not too upset that I went to the theater to see it because I live in a crazy cheap town. So the ticket was like $7.25. But other than that, you can skip this one. This is one of those movies that makes you think, wow, award seasons really are pretentious and boring for no fucking reason. But other than that, that's my review for this movie. Thank you for stopping by. I actually managed to wrap this up without rambling for 30 minutes. So thank you for coming by. Next week, I will be doing Mudbound. And then after that, probably The Post or The Shape of Water. So stick around for all of February. I'll be doing all 9 Oscar nominations. We got 8 more to go. I'm not excited for this year's Oscars cycle because every year it stresses me out. See you next week. Also, real quick, totally forgot. That peach scene, Jesus fucking Christ, that was disgusting. If there's any other reason to not watch this movie, it's because a guy jacks off into a peach and then another guy eats it. That's it. Don't watch this movie. How did it get an Oscar nomination? I'm done. That was nasty. Don't do that ever again.